Hello friends, welcome back. Myself Pushpendra Singh, and we are going to start with our daily current affairs. So today we have 26th of July 2021, and these lectures are useful for those who are preparing for the civil services examination which is conducted by the UPSC. Alright, so let's begin with today's lecture. So first is all about the Ramappa temple conferred the UNESCO status. So the Ramappa temple, which is located at the Telangana's Warangal district at Palampet, have been recently been conferred the status of the UNESCO's World Heritage Site. Okay, it has been informed by the Ministry of Culture on 25th of July 2021. Okay, for that purpose, right, a consensus was reached in this regard on the ongoing virtual meet that is related to the World Heritage Committee, right, which have recently been decided to confer the status of the World Heritage Site on the Ramappa temple, right. The Norway, which is a country or which is a Scandinavian country, basically opposed this description, but the Russia-led effort ultimately led to the incorporation of this site in the list of the World Heritage Sites, right? And in that move, a consensus of 17 countries basically supported that move. Now let us understand the brief description about the Ramappa temple. Okay, the Ramappa temple is also known as the Rudreshwara temple. It is also known as the Rudreshwara temple. Okay, it was constructed in around 1213 AD, right? So it was constructed in 1213 AD during the reign of the Kakatiya Empire by the Rechrala Rudra, right? The Rechrala Rudra was basically the Kakatiya king. He was basically, a general of the Kakatiya king Ganpati Deva, right? So he was basically the general of the Kakatiya king Ganpati Deva. And the most important aspect of this Ramappa temple is that the presiding deity, right, the temple is there, is basically consisting of the Ramalingeshwara Swami. The presiding deity consisting of the Ramalingeshwara Swami, right, and which is also known as the Ramappa temple specifically, right. And the temple complex basically consisting of very distinctive Kakatiya style, okay, which is of unique blend of the technology, right, the decoration which is exhibiting the influence of the Kakatiya sculptures. Okay, this Ramappa temple that we are talking basically specifically, right, is a manifestation of this, and often which is standing the testimonial to the Kakatiyan creative genius or Kakatiyan scriptural genius. The temple that we are talking about, the Ramappa temple, which stands on the 6 feet high, the star-shaped platform. Okay, so this temple itself is standing on this platform, which is a star-shaped and which is around 6 feet high, right, with the walls, pillars, and the ceilings adorned with the intricate carvings, right, which is basically the unique set of the skill belong to the Kakatiya sculptures. So this sculpture art and the decoration that we are talking about, that is specific to the Kakatiyan Empire, that is having the the outstanding universal value. So the distinct style of Kakatiya, right, that is basically known for the gateways, okay, to the temple complexes, right, which is basically the unique style of the architecture which is only belongs to this region, confront to this highly evolved proportion of the aesthetics in the temple and the town gateways specifically in the South India. So definitely at the long back, the European merchants, travelers were were mesmerized by the beauty of this temple, and definitely the temple was the brightest star in the galaxy of the medieval temples in the Deccan. That was one of the travelers basically made for that description regarding this temple. So definitely that World Heritage Committee basically meets on the virtual platform, and definitely the committee members or the World Heritage Committee members that we are talking, who have decided to incorporate this Ramappa temple into the World Heritage list, is basically base their decisions on the recommendations of the COMOS. ICOMOS. What is ICOMOS? That is the International Council on the Monuments and the Sites. So this International Council on the Monuments and the Sites, which basically act as an evaluation advisory body, right? Based on that recommendation, the World Heritage Committee basically decides the final decision making regarding whether the particular complex should be included in this World Heritage list or not. So this is something is very great from India. Next, you have the piezoelectric molecular crystals, right, which is an important breakthrough on the discovery of materials. So researchers from the Indian Institute of Science, Education and the Research, which is located at Kolkata in collaboration with IIT Kharagpur, which is a premier the institution of importance, right, of national importance, have developed this piezometric molecular crystals. The main purpose of the piezometric molecular crystals is to repair themselves without any need of external intervention. So these type of crystals will get repair themselves by themselves without any assistance or the need of the external intervention. Right? Such type of repair can be done from the molecular damages that may cause in those molecular labeled molecular crystals that have been recently informed by the Department of Science and Technology. Okay, so the scientists basically developed this piezoelectric molecular crystals that they basically repair themselves who have been damaged because of the mechanical aspects or the mechanical problems that basically needed or without needed of any sort of external intervention that have been recently informed by the Department of Science and Technology. Now, what is the utility of piezoelectric crystals? So these piezoelectric crystals basically it's a class of material, it's a one type of material that generate electricity when it undergoes the mechanical impact. Okay, so the devices that are used on the daily often break down in our day-to-day appliances due to the mechanical damage, right? That basically forces the users to either to repair or to replace them, right? Any sort of a device that we are talking, right, because of mechanical damage. So this decreases the life of the equipment, increases the maintenance cost, right? In many cases, like when you have the spacecraft, right, the human intervention for the restoration is not possible because that spacecraft may not be there in the close vicinity and it is not possible for the humans to reach over there. So it is having the great technological invention so that such type of piezoelectric materials can repair themselves without any external aid. So definitely, right, such type of crystals is also known as the bipyrazole organic crystals. Okay, now these piezoelectric crystals or the molecules, they are developed by the scientists from IIT Kharagpur, right, which recombine the mechanical fracture without any external intervention, that is autonomously, right, healing or self healing, right? Instead of healing, you can say the self healing in the milliseconds with the crystallographic precision. So definitely with highest amount of precision, this the bipyrazole organic crystals or such type of piezoelectric molecular crystals can basically self heal by themselves. So these materials with a perfect internal arrangement of the molecules or the ions, they are called crystals. Okay, now that are basically abundant in the nature, and this material may find an application in very high-end microchips, the high precision mechanical sensors, the operators, the micro robots, as well as the space. So definitely the gadgets or any sort of a spacecraft that we sent, right, that might not possible for you to repair those parts. So if you use that the piezoelectric materials, definitely the self-healing capacity would definitely help in achievement of the great success for the humans. Okay, so let's move to the next news, that is the US, European Union, NATO releases a joint statement. This joint statement is all about the Afghanistan, right? So definitely United States and the European Union along with the NATO, right, in the backdrop of the China, who is also eyeing on the soil of Afghanistan here, right? The joint communique basically given from the US, European Union and NATO jointly gave the five key elements, okay, for the future of the government of Afghanistan in order to support the future government formation, as well as in order to support, right, the peace, tranquility and the stability on the soil of Afghanistan. And definitely that all aspects will be supported by the international community with that respect. So these countries, the United States, the European Union, consisting of around 28 countries, the NATO, right, in the joint community, they have said in their discussion that on the Afghanistan, right, these countries are closely watching or closely monitoring the situation in the country called Afghanistan, right. And the joint community also said that they have called for halt in the fighting, which is basically related to the conflict, right. And they have also confessed that the military conflict or the military solution cannot be a lasting solution on the for the soil of Afghanistan. So definitely a special representatives and the special envoys of the United States of America, European Union and basically the NATO countries including France, Germany, Italy, Norway and UK met in the Rome in the Italy to discuss the situation in Afghanistan in the post US withdrawal, right, from the soil of Afghanistan. So definitely these developments basically related to the peace negotiations, right, after the fresh rounds of the talks in the Doha, that was related to, right, this Doha talks, that is between the Taliban as well as the High Peace Council of Reconciliation, that is led by the Abdullah. So that the Doha talks, which was ultimately did not yield any the concrete, outcome for that purpose, right. And that community was also called all the parties to reduce the violence, protect the civilians in every respect, and basically respecting their obligations related to the country under the international humanitarian law. So definitely the United States of America and the European Union, all nations basically called for the immediate ceasefire, right. And they have believed that the military conflict is of no solution. So they have appealed to the Taliban as well as the Afghanistan government to sit down on the negotiating table to work out a negotiated settlement, right. And they have also urged the Taliban to reduce the violence, uphold the commitment to protect the Afghanistan's infrastructure, protect the civilians, right. Definitely cooperate in every aspect, because the Afghanistan people is now in the backdrop of the COVID-19. They are also suffering as the other peoples are also suffering. So the most important, the joint community is the five elements that have been brought by this joint community. What is the five element? The first is basically, that include inclusive government, right. The right to elect. The second is the right to elect the political leaders, right. That is also emphasized by this joint community. Then the right, then protection for the human rights, right, including the rights of women, youth and minorities, right. Then definitely the commitment for, on the counter terrorism, right, that is also given in the commute or the joint commute, including ensuring that Afghanistan does not again serve a safe haven for the terrorist forces. And definitely at the last, adherence to the international law, that is including to the international humanitarian law. So these five elements were part of the joint commit from the US, European Union and basically NATO. So it has emphasized on the inclusive growth of Afghanistan. Then it has also emphasized on the right of the Afghan people to elect the political head of the country. They have also emphasized on the protection of the human rights, right, that is also related to the women, youths, minorities, children's, right, as well as the important emphasizing on the commitment on the counter-terrorism, right, and adherence to the international humanitarian law. So important aspect is, you can take it out, is that definitely the world leaders, including the world developed countries, right, the US as well as the European Union and the NATO forces, they are sincere enough for the establishment of the peace, tranquility and definitely the stability on the soil of Afghanistan. Next, the Ashad Purnima Dhamma Chakra Day program. So definitely on the auspicious occasion of the Dhamma or Ashad Purnima, the President of India, while addressing the Dhamma Chakra Day, definitely congratulated the people of this country, and it has the President have emphasized also the Buddhist value and the principles as well as their applications, definitely to address the global concerns, that could definitely help the world in order to heal the various aspects in order to make the world better place. Even Prime Minister Narendra Modi have also congratulated the world on the auspicious occasion of the Dhamma Chakra Day program, and definitely the Prime Minister Narendra Modi also lauded the care with the prayer initiative of the International Buddhist Confederation, on the auspicious occasion of the Ashad Purnima. Okay, so let us understand about the International Buddhist Confederation. So International Buddhist let us understand about the Ashad Purnima. So Ashad Purnima is basically a day every year which have been celebrated by the International Buddhist Confederation along with the partnership of the Ministry of Culture. What is the significance of Ashad Purnima, which is also known as the Dhamma Chakra Day? So this day basically marks the Buddha's or Gautam Buddha's first teaching after attaining the enlightenment, The Buddhas basically gave this first teaching to the 5 ascetic disciples, that is basically the pupil or the basically Sisyas. So the Gautam Buddha basically gave the first lecture or the first teaching to his 5 initial ascetic disciples, on the full moon day of the Ashad, that is basically near Varanasi at the Deer Park, in the Sarnath near Varanasi. So it is that day, that the day that lecture was basically delivered to the 5 ascetics on the full moon day, of the Ashad, that is being given at the Deer Park in the Sarnath. So the teachings of the Buddha or the teachings of the Dharma Chakra Parivartan Sutra is also known as the first tuning of or the first turning of the wheels of Dharma. So that teachings was basically given. It comprises of the basically 4 noble truths as well as the noble eightfold path. So this Buddha's first teaching basically comprises of 4 noble truths as well as the noble eightfold path. The day is also observed as the Guru Purnima, definitely. Okay, that we basically celebrating as basically the Dhamma Chakra Day. That on the same day you will have this Guru Purnima, that is celebrated by both Buddhists, as well as your Hindus. So both Buddhists and the Hindus basically celebrated that day, and it is the second most sacred day for the Buddhists after the Buddha Purnima, which is also known as the Vesak. So I hope you knows about the noble truths which have been propagated by the Lord Buddha or the Gautam Buddha, that all life is a dukkha, there is a suffering, and the suffering has an origin, and the suffering can cease, but there is a path, or there is a path out of suffering, So definitely the Buddha said that all life is a dukkha or suffering. The dukkha is caused by the tanha, that is means the thirst, you are basically the desire or attachment or the craving, and the Gautam Buddha further emphasized that this tanha can be overcoming, therefore the dukkha can be overcoming, and tanha was overcome as per the Gautam Buddha through the eightfold path. So definitely Gautam Buddha emphasized on the eightfold path. So what is the eightfold path given by the Gautam Buddha? As you know that the right understanding, the right intention, the right speech, the right action, right living, right effort, right attentiveness, right concentration, all such paths were basically given by Gautam Buddha. So definitely the Buddha denotes the one who have attained the enlightenments, and has the sense of awakening to build the peaceful, as well as harmonious and the just society in the world. So definitely it is having the great significance. Next, the Great Indian Bustard. The government has recently informed that in specifically in the Kutch Bustard Sanctuary in the Gujarat, the government has said that there is not a single great Indian bustard lying in the Kutch Bustard Sanctuary, which is located in the Kutch region of Gujarat, and that has basically shocked the shock wave along the environmental conservatives as well as the wildlife enthusiasts. So definitely, right, the significance of the great Indian bustard in the food chain, or in the basically in the grazing chain, is of great importance. So this the Kutch Bustard Sanctuary, right, is basically is located in definitely in the Kutch region in the Gujarat, right. So definitely here the Kutch Bustard Sanctuary is basically a tiny sanctuary which was notified initially in 1992 and spread just over 2 square kilometers of the area, and definitely its ecosystem zone or eco-sensitive zone covers most of the present day the core area or core habitat of the great Indian bustard. And this Kutch Bustard Sanctuary that we are talking, it is also known as the Lala Parjan Sanctuary. The Lala Parjan Sanctuary. It is also known as Lala Parjan Sanctuary. Okay, and this sanctuary is basically one of the 2 sanctuary in the Gujarat who have this great Indian bustard, right, in the Gujarat, and it was declared the sanctuary specifically for the conservation of the great Indian bustard in the Gujarat, right. And as you know that great Indian bustard is basically also protected species which have been protected in the Schedule 1 under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Right now, why this great Indian bustard is in losing first of all their grounds. So here the most important thing is that the sanctuary, which is of the zone or the ecological zone of the sanctuary, is the semi-desert region. So definitely the climate is arid in this zone, right. The rainfall that we are talking is very mild or erratic rainfall. The annual precipitation, right, in this region is hardly 15.1 inches per year. That is very few average precipitation per year, right. And definitely the windmills, the power mills that is basically started developing in this zone, right upon the borders of the sanctuary from 2008 onwards, have basically killed many such great Indian bustards, right. So the great Indian bustards are basically, right, one among the largest bustard species is found in India. And here the other 3 species are basically the McQueen bustard, Lesser Florican, and Bengali Florican. The great Indian bustard historic range included much of the Indian subcontinent, but it is now been just shrunken to 10% of it. It was initially there. Okay, and definitely the great Indian bustard prefer the grasslands for their habitat, right. And it is a terrestrial bird, that means it's always prefer on the ground or to stay on the ground, and they spend most of their times on the ground with occasional flight from other parts of the habitat. And definitely they feed upon the insects, the lizards, as well as the grass seeds. Okay, and it is also considered the flagship bird species of the grasslands, and definitely is of greater importance. Now you can see here present great Indian bustard population. The Rajasthan consisting of the majority of the population, almost 90% of the great Indian bustard population located in Rajasthan, around 128 birds. Gujarat hardly 10, Maharashtra 8, and Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh both basically 10. Now the threats is basically the collision with the power mills, right. The nest predation by the native predators like fox, mongoose, the monitor lizards, right. Definitely they have also been hunted in the Pakistan. Agricultural expansion in the grasslands, specifically in the Kutch region in the Rajasthan. The excess use of the pesticides that has basically related to the contamination of the food, right. The grazing pressure, most of the grasslands have been converted to either to the infrastructural development or for the agricultural purpose. The plantation of the shrubs, tree species in the grasslands, again that is diversion of the land, the poor land use policies, the habitat loss, all such is basically affecting your the population of the great Indian bustard, and the population have declined, right. The great Indian population fell by 90% in the last 50 years since 1969, right. It was initially 1260 birds, but now it has been fell to, right, just 150 great Indian bustard in 2019. So you can consider that right? Almost 90% of their species have been fell down in the last 50 years. Next, the North Ireland Protocol. So here, right, the Britain, which is basically having the problems with this North Ireland Protocol, have recently said that the Brexit, which is related to the Britain exit on the Northern Ireland, which is also known as the Northern Ireland Protocol, basically creates the problem for the Britain, and the Britain is basically considered for abandoning the North Ireland Protocol, which is a treaty on the Northern Ireland. If this North Ireland Protocol is not rewritten back or is not been amended. So now let us understand what is this North Ireland Protocol. It is basically the Brexit Treaty on the Northern Ireland. So what is that? It is the protocol which aims to resolve the issues created by the Brexit or the Britain exit, right? The border between the Northern Ireland, right, which is basically a part of the United Kingdom. The Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, right? The Republic of it border between Northern Ireland as well as the Republic of Ireland. The Republic of Ireland. The Republic of Ireland is a separate country, but the Northern Ireland is basically part of Ireland. So to resolve the issue which is related to the Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland, right, which remains a part of the European Union. So definitely the Republic of Ireland is a part of European Union, but the Northern Ireland basically is a part of UK. When the Brexit was happened, initially the Britain was basically within the fold of European Union, but when the Britain basically left the European Union, definitely the region which is adjacent or which is lying close to the Britain, right, like the Republic of Ireland, which is still in the European Union zone, definitely some protocols or some regulations from the European Union will definitely, right, will not apply to now Northern Ireland, and there is problem, right? The frontier, right, this frontier, specifically the Northern Ireland frontier, is basically contested, and part of it basically is fortified due to the decades of the violence, right? Definitely, and this protocol sets out to plan to deal with the unique violent situation, right? Definitely at that the border between the Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, definitely the checkpoints is started coming back. It is a part of the Brexit plan, and the British basically insisted on the leaving European Unions, the customs union, right, a single market, right, which allow the goods to flow freely across the European borders without checks. But definitely the Britain basically having their own concerns related to that, and definitely in that the plan is more checks on the goods which is basically entering Northern Ireland from the mainland Britain. So for that purpose, effectively creating a border down the Irish Sea and dividing the UK, which is facing with all the bureaucracies, and this has basically inflamed the sentiments among those in the Northern Islands who want the right to remain a part of the United Kingdom. Now, what is the European Union insisting on? European Unions basically believe that the bloc's existential interests are being put at the risk because of the Britain's move. For the Brussels, right, the single market is one of the important cornerstone, and if that single market is undermined because of any country like Britain, it could threaten the building blocks of the European integration. So European Union wants the Britain to sign up the Europe's health certification rules to minimize the need for the control, right? And so far many of these regulations have been waived during the grace period, but that is scheduled to be end this year, right? And the Britain already says that that the grounds is already ready to deploy the emergency clause once this expiration of this grace period was end. And definitely the Britain would definitely permits to act unilaterally, right, effectively allowing to suspend the part of the protocol if it is not being rewritten. And definitely Britain also threatened that if it does not work, right, the option always remains on the table, right? And definitely the Britain can do it unanimously, single-sided also with that respect. Next, the Armex 21. Okay, what is that? It is basically the Raksha Mantri or Defense Minister flags the Indian Army skiing expedition, which is also known as Armex 21. So it is a skiing expedition. So here the Indian skiing expedition, which is being conducted in the Himalayan mountain ranges, which is also known as RMX 21, right? It is of having the greater significance specifically in the Himalayan mountain region, which is covered around 1660 kilometers from the Karakoram Pass in the Ladakh to the Malari in the Uttarakhand for this skiing expedition, right? And it was conducted definitely to promote the adventurous activities in the country as well as in the Indian Army. So the team which is gathering information about the several areas along this international boundary. So team is also interacted with the local population of the far-flung areas and will able to gather the detailed information about the several uncharted areas along the international boundary and the hinterland. That will also help in the ready preparedness during any sort of a emergency during that period. Next, you have the Essential Defense Services Bill. So that is basically the Minister of State for the Defense introduced the Essential Defense Services Bill in the Lok Sabha. So here, what is the Essential Services Bill? So it aims to prevent the staff of the government-owned ordnance factories from going on the strike. So definitely, the Essential Defense Services Bill is aiming at prevention of the staff from going to the strike. Around 70,000 people basically work in 40 ordnance factories, right, around the countries, definitely, and it is meant to provide the maintenance of the essential defense services, right, even if the strike was basically caught. Definitely as to secure the security of the nation and the life and the property of the public at large, and for the matters which is connected with the incidents status. The Indian ordnance factories are basically the oldest and the largest industrial setup which are currently working in the Ministry of Defense. So the Ministry of Defense have brought this basically the Essential or Defense Maintenance or Defense Services Bill. Alright, now what does the government allow or the government to do? So definitely it empowered the government to declare the services which is mentioned in the Essential Defense Services that the cessation of the war of which would prejudiciously affect the production of the defense equipment or the goods or the operation of the maintenance of any industrial establishment or that is related to the repair and the maintenance of the products connections with the defense. So definitely it also prohibits the strike and the lockouts in any industrial establishment or the units which is engaged in the essential defense services. So it is of the greater importance to protect the country from going into the perpetual type of strike. Okay. Next, the Competition Commission of India. So here the e-commerce companies basically lost their battle against the Competition Commission of India before the High Court of Karnataka, right, which is related to the Competition Commission of India's order to conduct an investigation into whether such e-commerce companies have entered into the anti-competitive agreements, which is basically clearly in the violation of the provisions of the Competition Act 2002. So definitely the competition is the best means of ensuring the common man or Aam Aadmi have access to the broad range of goods and the services at the most competitive prices. So competition in the process of the economic rivalry between the market players to attract the customers. So with the increased competition, definitely the producers will have the maximum incentive to innovate and specialize, and that would basically result in the reduced cost and the wider choices to the consumers, definitely, and for protection of the consumers as well as for the misusing of such e-commerce companies to attract the maximum customers by some frivolous means. This Competition Commission of India Act was basically passed. It was passed by the Parliament in the year of 2002. That year basically prohibit, or that act prohibit, the anti-competitive agreements, abuse of the dominant position by the enterprises, and it also regulate any sort of combinations related to that. And in accordance with that Competition Commission of India, right, a competition appellate tribunal, the Competition Commission of India as well as the Competition Appellate Tribunal was basically established to look after such type of issues. So definitely the objective is very, very clear, right, which is achieved through the Competition Commission of India, and it is also related to the anti-competitive behaviors, right, to regulate that anti-competitive behaviors, okay, like the foreclosing competition, unfair or discriminatory pricing, or restricting the production of the goods, the provision of the services, or restricting the scientific or technical development to the customers, right? Something which is anti-competitive agreements, predatory pricing, the denial of the market access to the others, right? Making conclusions of the contract which is subjected to acceptance by other parties, right, which is unrelated to the original contract, right? All such is basically anti-competitive behavior by the firms. Okay. Next, the Nirvaya Fund. Recently, the government has informed that out of 6,212.8 crore allocation of that fund, right, till date under the Nirvaya Fund, around 4,087 crore have been disbursed or the release. So now let us understand about the Nirvaya Fund. So Nirvaya Fund is basically a dedicated fund which is being created by the government of India, right? And under that fund, the projects specifically which is designed to improve the safety and security of the women will be funded. So it is a non-lapsable corpus fund, and definitely, right, it is being administered by the Department of Economic Affairs under the Ministry of Finance. So as per the guidelines of the ministry, right, the responsibility of the Ministry of Women and the Child Development include, the appraisal, the recommend, the proposals, the scheme to be funded in the Nirvaya Fund, to review and the monitor the progress of the sanctioned schemes under this Nirvaya Fund for that purpose. Okay. Next, the cyber safety for the women and the children. So specifically, it has been the government has highlighted the steps which have taken for the cyber safety of women and the children specifically. So the Ministry of the Women and the Child Development has informed these steps. So first of all, National Cyber Crime Reporting Portal. So the government has launched this portal to enable the public to report incidents pertaining to all types of cyber crimes, with a special focus on the cyber crimes against women and children. The toll-free number 155260 has been operationalized to assist the lodging of online cyber complaints against the women and children. Right. Next, the central government supplements the initiatives of the state government also. Right. Definitely. To in terms of advisory, in terms of the financial assistance also. The central government also takes the measures such as issuing the alerts, advisories, capacity buildings, trainings, right? Such type of training will be imparted, right, to the state enforcement agency, to the law enforcement agencies, to the prosecutors, to the judicial officers, cyber forensic experts, etc. The National Commission for the Women is also been organizing the webinars, consultation with the stakeholders during many times in a year, right, which could basically increasing the awareness for the women and children. And the National Commission for the Protection of the Child Rights is also reviewed and compiled the existing guidelines on the cyber safety, right, and which has also led to the significant awareness in the society. Next, Anganwadi services. Here, the most important aspect related to the Anganwadi services is that the government has highlighted the targets which is achieved through the Anganwadi services. So first of all, the Anganwadi services have been under the umbrella integrated child development scheme, which was launched in 1975. The main purpose of this scheme is to improve the nutritional and the health status of the children which are in the age group of 0 to 6 years children, right, as well as to lay the foundation for the proper the psychological, physical and social development of child, right, as well as to reduce the mortality, specifically the child mortality, morbidity, right, the malnutrition, the school dropoutness in the children, to achieve the effective coordination of the policies, right, definitely to enhance the capability of the mother to look for the normal health and the nutrition. So definitely all children which are in the age of 6 months to the 6 years, pregnant women, lactating mothers are eligible for the services under Anganwadi services, and there is also effort for supplementary nutrition, right, for that purpose, right. In order to achieve this Anganwadi services, a package of 6 services basically comprising of the supplementary nutrition, preschool and non-formal education, nutrition and health education, immunization, health checkup, referral services which have also been provided to the targeted beneficiaries. All right. So we'll stop our lecture today at that point of the time. Okay, we'll meet again tomorrow for our next current affairs. So I hope you enjoyed this session. So please read the Hindu and Indian Express for your civil services examination. Thank you very much.